Hey everyone, it's Joelle at Brooklyn Book Doctor. Welcome. Today I am talking to Kimberly Ann Johnson, author of two books, Call of the Wild coming out next week, which you can pre-order in my bio. There's a link. You can pre-order this book. I know I'm going to do it as soon as I get off this conversation. And here she is coming on. Um, and the fourth trimester is her other book.
Hi.
Hi. I was having some. Oh, here's Catherine. Hey, Catherine. I'm having some connection issues today.
Oh,
Um, but all good. Here we are.
yeah. We're
Hi.
connected good now.
How's it going?
It's going.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I, my assistant, Jessica, who I've had for 2 years, I've never met her in person before. And she just got vaccinated. So she just came to San Diego last night. So she might be walking in the middle
Oh,
of our,
awesome.
but that's
Cool.
part of this whole launching thing is like people are starting to come in and connections are being made. So it's fun.
That's awesome. Yeah, you're in full launch mode right now.
Yep. 6 days to drop.
I know, 6 days. That's so exciting.
Calendar going and
Oh my God. So anyone who's joining us, Catherine says hi from Mississippi. Anyone who's joining us right now, Kimberly's book publishes next Tuesday, but you really want to pre-order it now, and the link's in my bio so you can do it right away. It's good for you, and it also helps Kimberly to get her mission out there to more people. So you'll be doing a good thing by a great author. Um, yeah, so I wanted to know, I know a little bit about how the launch is going, but how's your head? How's your heart? Yay, there
uh,
it is.
how are my head and heart? My heart is full. It's I'm a Gemini. I love talking to people. I love conversations, and so the best part of this is getting to talk to people and hearing how the work impacts them, and finally having it out there to have a tangible thing to talk about. So that is full. It's also real since I'm doing a live event. I have so many people coming from out of town from different parts of my life. It's definitely going to be like it's kind of like a wedding. It's like the biggest party I've had besides my 40th birthday party, which was also my going away party in Brazil. So lots of big emotions. Today I'm going to get a jaguar tattoo because we're going to have a tattoo artist at the event. So today I'm going to get the tattoo. And my head is kind of all over the place. Yesterday I did 4 podcasts, 2 IG lives,
Oh
and
my
a sales
God. Oh my God.
because I'm still a mom and I'm still running a business. So um, that's the hard part. The CEO role is the hard part.
Yeah, that's a lot of things. That's a lot of things. I mean, I know that there's a lot of people joining and saying hi, saying there. Susan says she pre-ordered.
Yay!
Um,
She's good
Susan Crimmins.
because also people are excited about meeting you because you're uh,
Well, I'm excited about meeting everyone too. I was saying in my story, I'm not my story, my post, how we met, which is something that I think everybody knows, but I don't think everybody knows. In Brazil, way back in 2012, and you were the first person who hired me when I left publishing, which is really a monumental role. I know you've had that role in a lot of people's lives in different ways. It's kind of one of your superpowers, and I'm really just always so honored and delighted to be part of your first book, and that you have become the superstar I always saw you as. It's really
mhm.
exciting for me to see you really taking that center stage, with your mission, soul centered, nervous system centered, heart centered, bringing all of your brilliance on all different levels to what you're doing. Um, yeah, of course. I know everything is really full right now, but I'm super curious about a lot of things, but I want to make this as helpful to both of our people as possible. As a book
Yeah.
person, I'm super interested in two things, which we could talk about probably for hours. One of them is how in the world are you managing this launch? It's something that just seemed like there's a lot of moving parts and it takes a lot of planning and there's a lot of people involved perhaps. And speaking to the CEO issue, you're kind of the CEO of the launch as well as everything else. And then my other question is, of course, I want to know, how is it different working on a second book than working on a first book? Because I can only imagine that it's like worlds apart. So I don't know if you feel called to answer one of those before another, but I'd love to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, so the first book is filled with, for me, was filled with self-doubt, was filled with, I thought my publisher was going to fire me when they rejected my first manuscript. I was on the edge all the time about, like, I'm not good enough, even after I got the book deal. And I was also writing about an experience that I didn't have. So I was writing about an experience that I wanted other women to have, but that I didn't actually have. So I wrote myself out of a phase of my life with an aspirational vision of something I knew was possible, but that I didn't experience. My second book, I own this book. Like, I am the Jaguar. Like, I'm writing about an experience that I absolutely have had and that I've totally integrated. So the writing process of it, at the beginning at least, was a lot easier because I really was clear about what I was doing. And I was also clear that I didn't want to do it by myself. So I hired a writer and I made sure that I had the support structures in place that I needed in order to do that. Because the first book was just a bit of a gong show in terms of thinking that my in-house editor would be able to do more. Because I had worked with you, my proposal was so good and it was much better than the manuscript because you weren't working with me on the manuscript. So I didn't have somebody that was helping me. I know you say this all the time, but I think everyone listening needs to know that, writing a proposal is a critical part of writing a book. And then writing a book is also, it's a whole other kind of project. And for me, it's like, you're called a book doctor. You could be called a book doula. It's like, I needed that mirroring of just as a human being, but I also need that dialogue and sort of a back and forth since I'm a teacher. Because essentially, I'm a teacher. I can write. I'm maybe a better than average writer, but I'm not an excellent writer. But I'm an excellent teacher. And I needed someone to help me take the teachings and make that into a format that is a book, which sounds a lot easier because it's like, oh, well, you already have the course and you already have the structure. But books are their own thing. But then, of course, I was due last April and then we had a global pandemic and I'm writing a book on the nervous system. And all of a sudden we have a new common language about race. And it's like, oh, okay, so there's a whole other 2 layers that I can add to this, but it needs time to marinate. So pushing this book to the finish line was actually a lot harder because I was exhausted. I had moved. I moved twice I moved once to New York in the middle of writing it, and then I moved back in the middle of writing it, and I stayed in all different, like 8 different places during the summer and whatever. As far as this part of it, I honestly, to be totally frank, I thought this part was going to be easier, and it hasn't been. So I have a lot more people on my teams, but essentially I'm still in the driver's seat. I have to still be directing because it's my book and it's my message. And I was mistaken about sort of outsourcing versus delegation and how that all works. And the things that are coming to fruition have been teamwork. Like, my publisher has gotten me some great things like Jonathan Field's Good Life podcast. My PR people have gotten me some great things like a recent conversation with B. Dixon at Honeypot. But a lot of what has been coming to fruition is either just my direct contacts or just one removed from me. And I'm still doing so much pitching and so much writing. And my business and my livelihood come from teaching courses. So even though I got a 6-figure book deal, that's divided over 4 years, split with an agent and a writer, and it's not what I live on. So I'm still doing all of the course writing. That said, I have way more confidence about what I'm doing because my first book was well received. I didn't go through I've gone through the same things of like, maybe I'm wrong, because frankly, maybe I am. Like, it's like, yeah, maybe I am wrong. Maybe I will evolve. Maybe this is going to change. And when you put it in writing, it's kind of, especially someone like me who's a non-linear teacher, and I'm not really working in the psychological realm. Uh, I've just had a lot less self-doubt than with the first one. More confidence that my publishers made a really good investment and they were lucky to have me, not just I'm lucky to have them. Not that kind of like, oh my God, will anyone take me kind of thing. Like, no, like they're getting someone who knows what they're doing, who knows how to market, who likes doing it. And I have to keep remembering that for me, sales and marketing has come to be a great joy because I am so convicted about what I'm teaching that I love, for me, marketing and sales is just teaching. And so I love doing that. Sorry, I'm going to close my window because we got some weed whacking going on.
Yeah, I mean, you're so connected to your mission and your life and your marketing and your sales are all bound up together, and your books. There is not a lot of separation between them. It's not like I create this thing and then I don't think about it ever any other time. It's like you're living and breathing this content, which I imagine makes it easier to talk about all the time in the different ways that you talk about it.
Yeah.
I
And
do
it's
think
bizarre too.
it's
But
bizarre, like to be thinking about talking about the same thing all the time.
just how many ways it interconnects on every layer of my life, you know? I have a 13-year-old daughter. Also, just how many ways it's in the collective right now. Like Dave Eggers' new children's book is called We Become Jaguars, and it's about a little boy who's playing with his grandma, and his grandma says, "Let's play Jaguar," and they crawl around together and roar. Melissa Febos' new book, Girlhood, she's had a couple pieces come out in the Times, is very, very related to how her journey through her own sexuality, and then she was a dom, and now you know, she's writing about trauma and renegotiation of trauma during the pandemic, and touch and power. So you know, that's exciting too, to be in the midst of something that feels full of potential.
Yeah, I think that's where you always are in some way or another. You land in the uprising of something just at the beginning of the crest of the wave, and then your material is out there reaching tons of people. That's what happened with your first book when it came out, fall of 2016, right? 2017.
Yeah, it came out December 2017.
Right. So Me Too had just happened. It just exploded. And then your book came out and you were speaking to that through your book, even though ostensibly it was about postpartum, but there was definitely this element of like women's voices need to be heard. This experience is underrepresented and really it's an urgent need. So it was thrilling to see that happen, to see you the book come out with like amazing timing. I can't imagine that this is going to be anything less. And at the same time, I also know that the launch period of a book can be like tiring and fragmenting, and you're putting in a lot of time and energy.
Like last week and the week before, I was definitely like at my max. And then there just came a moment, like there is with everything, where it's just like, okay, I've done most of what I can do. And now it's like zoom out and it's execute what's already scheduled. Don't try to schedule more stuff. Execute well on what's already scheduled, and trust. And just trust, you know, you have tipping point things, right? Like Esther Perel mentioned me in her newsletter.
I saw that.
That could be a tipping point. You know, if I go on Tim Ferriss, it could be a tipping point, right? Because you just never know. And it's like, there has to be a level where I'm living the mission of what the book is, which is not overriding my body's needs, not steamrolling things. And also for me, like, connection is really important. So I never want anyone to feel that I'm using them. I want them to feel like there's a mutual exchange. And as my business grows, I've been afraid of that because right now I know there are definitely people who've studied with me whose names I don't know, but there's still an inner circle of a few hundred people, and I have, you know, I have that capacity to know it and make connections. So of course there's like, okay, now there's like wider exposure. So people outside of my immediate network are going to know what I think and how I do it. But also I don't want, like, I'm working with like the tenderest parts of people, and I don't want anyone to feel like I'm out there using their difficult experiences for fodder for my own message. So that's at every level. Like, I'm not interested in just, oh, I want to be everywhere, because I don't know, it's hard to explain, but it's just when I'm pitching people, it's like actually because I value it and I want to do it. It's not just because of what I think I'm going to get out of it. And I think that kind of comes across. So there was just a time maybe over the weekend where I'm like, okay, it's just like what's done is done until this point. Also, there's been so many weird things happening. Like my daughter, it's time for her to go to high school, and I had all this paperwork to fill out, and then I had to redo my lease, and then my computer keeps fritzing. It's a new computer, but it keeps like getting all this weird static stuff, you know? So it's like all the other stuff that finally you're just like, okay, like, yeah, you want to do all the things, which are like sell books in bulk, right? Like selling books one by one is great. And thank you to everyone listening who has ordered or pre-ordered. And as the person who's trying to make a bestseller list, you're trying to sell multiple copies at once. And there's all kinds of ways to do it because you want to distribute them throughout the country. You don't want anyone to think you're buying your own books. So you want, you know, there's all kinds of ways to maximize the experience. But at the same time, I'm not trying to freaking game the system. Like, I want the book to sell because it's a good book, not because I mean, okay, if I'm charismatic, that's good too. But I really want people to be helped by the book. And that's the point of it. So that's why I'm giving away the first chapter. At first, I was like, the whole first chapter, because the first chapter is the longest. It's where all of the skeleton of the book is. It's where all the great graphics are. And it's like, feels like a lot. But then at the same time, that's great, because then more people will get helped by it. And that's really the point. And it's also the genuine benefit of having a business that runs in one way. It's something I didn't anticipate. But because my courses do so well, I can do a lot of other things not for the money. So I can give sessions and I don't have to charge a lot because I'm not depending on that. I mean, everything's relative, but, you know, I can give the book away. People are so surprised because I walk around sometimes, not all the time, but with my books. And when I see new moms and I strike up a conversation because I like chatting with strangers, I'll give them my book, you know, and people think that's kind of weird, but it's like, but that's why I wrote it, so that like real people could really get help. And I'm not really interested in becoming, like I tell everyone, like if you see me around town, say hi. Like I'm not trying to be like removed or anonymous or anything. In fact, like I get a lot out of the interactions. So
I remember when you did that with the first trimester, the fourth trimester, when you were out working at a cafe and you're like, hey, you see the strollers, you see the moms, you're like, hey, do you have this? Do you have something? Do you have help? Striking up conversations, giving them copies.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it's for. That's what I spend all the time. It takes a long time to write a book. It's one of the harder things to do. And so it's like, it's here. I might as well offer the help. I mean, it was funny because I was kind of like that when I first became a rolfer. It was sort of obnoxious. Like I would be like, see people's posture and be like, I can help you. You know? But this is still different. It's just sort of like, yeah. So I think I'm 6 days to launch, and I'm more just like, okay, are things falling through the crack? Definitely. One of the things that's wedged in a crack right now is one of my biggest opportunities, which is the Big Ideas Book Club, which my book got nominated for. And they want me to do a 12-minute audio. And it's like my worst thing to do recorded audio without talking to anyone and without teaching. I hate it. I don't like doing the intros to my podcast. I don't like doing the interludes. It's always the bottleneck in the workflow. And it was due like a week ago, and it's crazy that I haven't done it. And then I was also just like, but you know what? Fuck it. Like, who cares? Like if I don't do it, I don't do it. Like it's only this one thing. I am at some point I'll do it, and who knows if they'll use it or not. But there's just only so much one person can do, and even one person with a great team, because so I thought that it would be easier, like I said, but it isn't really.
I want to talk about the confidence piece because, I work with people at the very beginning stages of their book book writing career when they are thinking about what their idea is and they're thinking about and writing their proposal, and it always, both of those stages always is full of surprises. And the one thing that I find comes up so much with first-time authors is, especially women, the incredible self-doubt. It's so biting is the word that's coming to mind. And it's pervasive. That imposter complex is very alive. And it comes as a surprise because otherwise these women are very high functioning. They accomplish a lot in their lives. They have accomplished a lot. And there's something about when they commit to their book idea, which they're excited about, then these goblins come up from somewhere and start telling them all kinds of stories very loud about how they can't or they shouldn't. And they'll deal with it in one episode and then it'll come back. It's not done and it just keeps coming back. And I think there can be it's a moving target. So there can be the thought of like, okay, well, when I get an agent, then the self-doubt will go away. Okay, when I get a book deal, then the self-doubt will go away. Okay, well, when I finished writing the book, then it'll go away. When I publish it, it'll go away. When I get the next book done, it'll go away. So there's this constant kind of shocking resurgence of lack of confidence all the time, which can be more than people bargain for. Of course, you don't think that. You think, I'm going to be an author. That's going to be awesome. People are going to read my book. I'm going to talk about my book. I love my book. I love these ideas. I totally want to. I'm devoted to my mission. I want to get it out there. These ideas, the story, whatever it is, I know it's important to the world. Yeah, Jessica says, yes, I know. I see it all the time. And I understand because I'm a writer also, and I go through the same things. So there may be the idea of, oh, well, Kimberly's got a second book and she's with Harper and she got a big advance and now she has a team and, like all the things are smoothed out. You don't have, your life is beautiful and there's no, or whatever our fantasies are of what that means.
Yeah.
But in fact, it's like life goes on and those little voices are kind of there and we have to deal with them all the time. And your book is a lot of work and it's a big act of service, and same with the launch and all of these opportunities that you're going for. It's all in the context of your mission, what you're serving, the greater good, and all of that. And it doesn't stop being that.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't experienced like crippling self-doubt in this particular process, but like I said, it's because I'm so committed to what it is that I have to say, and because I also I'm like just okay with it being wrong. Like it just not like there might be ideas that I'm putting forward and there might be stretches that I'm making that are just not true, and that in the future we'll come to know that they'll be different. And I mean, I've been, I guess, just being in the public eye and being willing to be controversial. I've already been canceled. I articulated very clearly for myself, like, what are the things that I'm afraid people are going to say about me? Like, let me just like write them out. Like, what am I afraid? And then, okay, and what do I know about myself? And, my book is actually about this. It's about the social nervous system response and how, as women, we're specifically impacted by it because of estrogen, and estrogen's a bonding hormone. So it's our superpower that allows us to really be attuned to what people are feeling around us. But on the flip side of it, we have the fitting in response, which is it's easier for me to camouflage than stand out because I'll be safer, or I can't tolerate too much conflict, so I'm just going to be really nice and tolerate and appease. And what like, I don't know, you're not really asking me for advice, but like what my advice to be for people that are listening, and also because I've sent so many people to you, and some of them are listening and on here, or like Devin's here, one was step removed from Eileen, and is like, first of all, get a good book coach, right? Like, get someone who can see your idea, get somebody who helps you have an accurate reflection, because you're not a yes person. So you're going to tell someone like, I don't think that really works, or this idea needs to marinate longer, or you know, maybe this isn't actually the book you're meant to write, because that's what everybody thinks, right? You're like, maybe this isn't my job to do, maybe I can back out of this somehow, you know, put it in the drawer, and it's like it won't let you go. So you need somebody who tells you, you know, oh, maybe that's a little more ego driven than what this book wants to be, or maybe that's not, like, that's a great message, but that was a 10 years ago message, and like what's new, or whatever. You need somebody who, this is where I think, like, because people write books for different reasons, but most of the people who are listening here are writing it because it's like their soul's work to do. It's their message that they have either already offered to people in other forms in a lot of ways, or it's medicine they needed that they didn't have, that they want someone else to have. That's a very tender place to be. And you need somebody who is, like, we think, oh, well, we should be stronger on our own, and we should be able, like, why do I feel this way? Or I'm so successful in all these other ways. Why am I doing this? It's like, we actually need each other. That's a social nervous system. We need other people who are also writing and in similar circumstances. We need good teachers and mirrors that can reflect back to us, like, yeah, this is important. This, you know, or the other thing, you're always like, am I even making sense? Right? Like, you read your own words and you're like, even make sense. I still read the book and I'm like, does this make sense? Because it's my own words, and it's not, you know, I didn't write a necessarily poetic book. I wrote a book that's supposed to be useful. Not that those are mutually exclusive, but so I think that there are things we can put in place so that we're less likely to come up against that stuff. But then there's also the part that, like, writing a book is a solitary thing, no matter how much support you have in place. And so you are facing those things. And, you know, I wrote a book on fucking trauma. Like, that was another reason I was like, last week, all of a sudden I was like, oh yeah, I've done 5 podcasts where everyone wants to know my trauma history. No wonder I'm not feeling that great. Like, you know, I mean, that's not where I spend my time in my trauma past. No, that's because I've healed most of it. But in service of telling a story and in service of helping other people and creating connection, it's important to go back through that stuff. But that has its own toll. And it's the same thing in writing, right? Like, if you're going to write something good, you're going to go back, you're going to scratch some of those scabs off. And you don't, when you're just talking about doing it, it's like doing shadow work. Everyone's like, shadow work, I love shadow work. No, you don't.
It sucks.
It's terrible.
It's hard
to do it, but it's painful. And the same thing about writing. If you're going to write about something that is poignant and touching and connective, you're going to touch those places that hurt, that are young, that are vulnerable. And it's hard. But I can say that it is really fucking worth it when you've got a book in your hands. Like, you asked me this 6 months ago, and I'm like, I'm never doing this again. Like, give me a break, you know? Cece, like, you're not, she goes, live it up, people. You're not getting another one of these until I'm done with high school. Hope you like it, you know? And then now it's here, and it's like, you're like, oh my God, but it's so pretty.
It is so pretty.
It's so beautiful. And even just the acknowledgments, it's like, just to read the acknowledgments is just so amazing. And people who write books usually love books. I love books. Books are my friends. That's what I miss the most about my stuff that's in a random freaking storage unit in Long Island, is like my books. And like my favorite books, I want to order them again, and I give them away. And it's like, it's a thing. And there's so few things these days, right? There's like, everything is digital and this, and it's like, no, but this is, and it's so, you know, it's gold. So, you know, it's worth it. And then it's really worth it when people read it and they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't understand this about myself, and now I do. Oh my gosh, I've had a conversation I haven't been able to have. I said the thing I thought I couldn't say. Then it's like, it's worth it.
It's totally worth it. And that's what I just want to emphasize for the people who are listening, who are working on a book or who are thinking about writing a book, that yes, the self-doubt will come, but it's worth it. It is worth it.
Trust the people that you hire, because that's, I mean, I think this about everything. Like, we're such a hyper individualistic culture that we think we should be able to do it and solve it ourselves. And we're just not working hard enough. And if we had more.
Oh, what happened? Ah.
Can you hear me?
Sorry, I was trying to get rid of something and I think I stopped everything. Sorry, everyone.
That's okay. I forgot what I was saying.
Trust the people that you're working with.
Oh, because we think we should only have it internally. And the reason we have quote unquote writer's block or something is because it's like we have a personality flaw. But usually it's that we don't have a resource that we need, whether that's we need to go outside or, you know, I listened to a Seth Godin thing. It was like, nobody says they have this kind of block and that kind of block, but it's like writer's block is like a thing. And we need to be able to believe, you know, like for instance, I'm thinking about Eileen right now because it's like you need to believe that when people tell you it's a good idea, they're not just telling you that because they're trying to make you feel good. Like that it actually really is. You know, it's like when someone tells you like, well, do you think this guy is like good for me? That you're asking someone that's really going to tell you the truth. And like, if they're not, they're going to say, no, I don't. Like, no, like, okay.
Run
like,
away.
If you're going to do it, like, I'll go along with you. But like, no, let me just say this one time. I'm not on board, but then I'll be your friend. But you need to actually really believe like, oh, this is something the world needs. And it might not be what everyone needs, but it might be what some people need. And that's what you need to write. So
it reminds me of when I, for half a second, rode horses. I didn't do it for very long. I wasn't good at it at all. But they would tell you, throw your heart over the fence and the horse will follow. And that's something I couldn't do, probably my freeze pattern. But when you're a new author, when this is uncharted territory, you really have to throw your heart over the fence and let the project follow. So it's a lot of self-belief in that moment. And like you're saying, it's really hard to do it in isolation. What we talk about a lot in the masterminds in Book Proposal Academy is how to keep going in spite of the self-talk, the self-chatter. And it always makes a huge difference when you're not alone, you're doing it in community, you have people together. And in fact, Book Proposal Academy that happened in 2020, the spring one that Catherine was in, Eileen was in, that one turned out to be so strong because we bonded intensely in the face of all the things, the adversity, the uncertainty, all that was happening so intensely around us. And that got us to the finish line. Eileen got an agent, Catherine got an agent, Eileen sold her book. Like it was this big, weirdly, counterintuitively motivation to bond, and the bonding helped everybody. So to your point about community and the social nervous system in book writing, it's not the best solitarily.
You need the amount of adrenaline or cortisol that's going to push you off the dime, but not so much that you're going to be, you know, in overwhelm, right? So you got to have like the right amount of stress that makes, and like the boundaries of a course that's like, okay, do this, do this, do this. But then at the same time, okay, yeah, it's a dance, but it's worth it. And the thing, people always go, well, how do you know you need to write? It's like, well, thing just won't leave you alone. You know, I mean, there's how many times was I like, okay, I just don't think this is mine to do. Like, let's just let somebody else have that idea. And then it won't leave you alone. And then the other thing I've really learned is just to have my own code. So Elizabeth Gilbert might like to wake up and write every day at 9 a.m. And, you know, another friend of mine might like to do morning pages at 6 a.m. with lemon water. And Bethany Saltman thinks there's an imaginary, like a window from 3:30 to 5 that's best. And that's how she wrote her book. And Cheryl Strayed is a sprint writer and rents hotel rooms and writes on binges. It's like, instead of pushing against how you work. It's like learn how you work and set yourself up for that. And then at the same time, like a lot of us learned in the pandemic, sometimes you just got to do it wherever you are, however you can.
Exactly. Eileen wrote in 15-minute spurts with a baby on her hip and a 5-year-old running around, living with her parents, moved in with her parents. And I know Catherine also had similar challenge. I mean, we were all challenged last year, but it happened. It didn't seem possible at first, but it was possible and it did happen. Not that you have to torture yourself, but that you can find pockets of time where things can happen and you can be more inventive and creative about how you work than you think.
And it's the long game. It really is. That's the thing is like what I've learned in business is we overestimate what we can do in a day, but we underestimate what we can do in 90 days. And so it's like, it's really playing the long game. That, I mean, writing a book is the absolute long game because publishing is the freaking slowest industry out there. I'm pretty sure. I mean, I've never been involved in anything that's so, I mean, everything takes forever. So you really have to be committed to that because you sign a book deal right now in, what is it, we're in April 2021. Like your book's not coming out till like winter 2023 or something.
Exactly.
So it's like the little pieces over time and then giving yourself what you need. And that everyone's got that idea of that little cabin in the woods where you
Yeah, it's true.
And I had that. And then I also had I want a writer's residency. Like to me, that meant something. Then I interviewed James Nestor, who wrote the book Breathe that's sold 250,000 copies and it's been backlisted on the Times and it's coming out in paperback in a little bit. And he's in his book, he talks about this cabin. So he mentioned it. I was like, yeah, the cabin. And then he dismantled his own idea. He was like, yeah, like it wasn't really like that kind of thing. But especially with, most people aren't just writers. They also have lots of other hats. So get yourself the right support, know your own code, and, play the long game.
And discover your process. And that process will be unique to you. You don't have to follow anyone else's process. And it could be strange. You might think it's weird, but it'll be yours. And that's what'll get you through the writing the pages and doing the pitching and all of the things that come with publishing. I just had one more question for you. You mentioned earlier on that you worked with a writer on this book. Can you tell us a little bit about that process? What was that like?
Yeah, so when I got an agent, I didn't have a proposal. I just had an idea. And but I decided to have a meeting with her anyway. And my agent is Stephanie Tate at the Tate Agency, and she's in Philly now. She used to be in New York. She said yes right away, and she said, I think I know who could help you write the proposal. And Colleen Martell is somebody who works at the agency, but also did some freelance stuff. So I had a meeting with Colleen. I loved her right away. At the end, I know that I have anxious attachment, so I'm anxious. I oftentimes just like hire people before I've even interviewed them. And so I was trying not to do that. So I thought I should interview a few people. But at the end of our call, I just said, do you want me to interview more people? And she got completely blushed and she was like, no, I don't. I really want to do this. And so I was like, all right. So she came in at 5,000, which is like way less than most book proposals to do privately. And I even said that to her, like, why is this so little? And she said, well, it's a long-term investment. It's an investment for the agency and it's our investment, in you. So we worked on that together. She took the Jaguar class. I would walk, she would take notes. We transcribed some of my classes and then we shaped the structure of the book together. And then when it came to get the book deal, because I'd had the experience of writing a proposal with you and then trying to write a manuscript by myself, I knew I could do it this time because I knew more about it, but I also knew it would take me like 3 or 4 times as long. And I was looking at things more like a business now. So I was like, I don't actually want to spend the next 3 or 4 years writing this. I want to write it in 6 months or a year. And Colleen was willing to do it. So in my contract, I'm the author and she's the writer. And I had a bit of a hard time with that language because she's not a ghostwriter and she wasn't really my co-writer. she is more like an editor, and I think she would agree with that, because she told me I write more than the other authors that she's worked with. Um, but it was really kind of an efficiency question for me. And in the end, it was a good decision. I mean, Colleen, in the process of period of time that we did it, she was on a fertility journey. She got pregnant. She had a full pregnancy. She had a baby. She was in her postpartum, and the postpartum was January to March, and then the pandemic started. So relying, this is working with women and women's health. And I was like, I will absolutely not be asking her for anything in her fourth trimester. So that means I'm kind of either on my own to work or I'm on a hiatus. And the way that all the planning went means, you're working with other people's schedules. But I love Colleen. And yeah, I mean, we still, the process of writing the proposal was very smooth with us. Then the book just got harder, I think, just because of life and the times that we were in and how we were connecting. She's raising, even after the fourth trimester, at 4 months now, she's housebound. Her parents lived next door, but they couldn't see each other, and so she didn't have any childcare, and it's just like a lot. And I'm personally connected to her now because I'm invested in her and her life and how she feels, and we're writing a book on trauma, so it's hard to not also be addressing how that's working with her and through her. But that's how it worked for me. It's a big financial investment, it was a huge part of my advance. But it's the support that I felt that I needed and in the time period that I thought I wanted to do it.
Totally. Yeah, thanks for spelling that out. That's really helpful. I call that role a ghost editor.
Yeah. So I didn't want to share royalties because I felt like my platform I've built on my own with my team. And I didn't feel that I also have made a deal since then because my first book has products. So it has cards and journals coming out. And I negotiated those on my own without my agent. And because I did my whole first book deal on my own without an agent. So I just feel like that didn't feel fair. But I since have a deal with Sounds True that I did go through my agent with. I just didn't, because I feel like book sales have a lot more. It has a lot to do with the quality of the book, obviously, but it also has to do with the amount of hustle that I'm doing right now and have been doing, building a platform. And that's something that I've done with my business, not with my editor or my agent. So that's how I felt about that. Whereas the journal, I have an illustrator, and I argued for her to get royalties because a journal is so much about the artwork. And she's also a woman of color. And I was just like, I don't feel right just paying her a flat fee for this. I want her to succeed if this journal succeeds. And so in that case, that felt like that was an integrity for me. So it just had to do with getting clear. And I tend to be somebody who overgives. And so I just had to get really clear about like, okay, that doesn't feel right to me. This is how I want this compensation to be. And this is what I think is fair.
That's awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much for talking with us today. I hope that people who joined us learned a ton about publishing and about your journey. And I want to tell everyone that you can order Kimberly's book in many places.
Yeah.
And also through the link in my bio, probably in your bio too. And please do try to pre-order it now because it comes out in 6 days and your pre-order makes a big difference. Support your, well, you're not an independent author, but support your favorite author and show some love and help her get her mission onto the bestseller list. As Kimberly said, this is one of many things that makes a book end up on the bestseller list, but you can pre-order. That's an easy way. You can also write a review on Goodreads, on Amazon, on Bookshop, maybe the day that it comes out.
The first chapter, like you're not sure, you can go to KimberlyAnnJohnson.com/chapter. And then you can just right away today read that and see if you want to buy the book. Maggie says she pre-ordered 5.
That's awesome.
And yeah, if you go over to KimberlyAnnJohnson.com/call-of-the-wild, then we've got some stuff going on. So if you buy one, you'll get a special playlist. You'll be able to come to the launch party next week. And if you want to have a book club with the book and work the book with other people, we have a great discussion guide, and I'll be leading the first one next week.
That's awesome. So there's lots and lots of ways to get involved, to be involved in this book. It's not like you're saying, it's not just a solitary activity, although it can be, that you just buy and do it on your own. You can be really involved with other people and have the experience of working through the material of the book with this social social nervous system component. You can live it. It doesn't have to be an abstraction or a theory. You can actually get your whole body.
Discussion guide kind of helps people set it up so that they can use the book, like the way that you check in the group is iterative of what the skills in the book are that you can learn. So it's going to be great. You're going to see jaguars everywhere. We made a GIF. That's one of the funnest things that we've done. If you go to your GIF and you go to Call of the Wild, you will see either a weak jaguar, which basically made me laugh for like ever. You can see a jaguar coming up like this, or you can just see Call of the Wild in sparkly gold letters. So
that is awesome.
Why not?
Use the GIF.
I'm going to have to go get on a green screen so that we can make one of me like doing
jumping out with a jaguar cape on.
Totally.
I love it.
All right.
Thank you so much. I'm going to be at the party next week. I am looking forward to that. I will be fully vaccinated and ready to put on my jaguar gear, and I am ordering the book as soon as we get off this call, so I hope other people do too. And I'm so excited for you. I'm so proud of you. And what else can I say? Congratulations.
Thank you. Thanks for planting the seed. Oh, Baggy's like, I'm going to be there. I'm going to hug you.
Okay, all right.
Well, Blood Fest over there.
I can't wait.
Okay, bye.
All right, bye.